I've been lifting through a herniated disc. How am I doing this? That sounds crazy. So I was dealing with some symptoms with pain in my SI joint and occasionally some numbness and tingling down my leg. As soon as I started experiencing these symptoms, I switched from squats that would put pressure on my spine to a belt squat, so I wasn't putting pressure directly on my spine. But I also started doing some rehab exercises like hyperextensions and slowly working back my range of motion on a deadlift, specifically a Jefferson sort of deadlift. That's where you have a lot of bend in the spine. Whenever you have any sort of injury, it sounds counterintuitive, but you want to face the problems head on. So instead of just keeping my back neutral, I'm actually working in positions that are bending my spine to where I'm hunching forward and building in a lot of range of motion and strength. So that way I can get blood flow to the area, but also get my body stronger in these positions. Because if you just stay upright with a herniated disc and you don't do anything that causes pain to it, the second you do, you're going to have a re-injury. Now, these exercises in range of motion, is this something that you just do all at one time to where you're doing a stiff-legged deadlift with your maximum amount of weight to your fingertips touching your toes? No, it's something you work back gradually. I had a setback in my recovery today because I deadlifted some dumbbells and I just wasn't ready for that. But up to that point, I was making super fast progress, increasing range of motion on my hyperextensions, increasing range of motion on my deadlifts. And the first thing that you're going to do before you add weight, increase your range of motion. Once that's increased, then you can start adding weight. Whenever you get stronger in these positions, you're eventually going to build more and more muscle. I also had a sprained ankle in the past that I wasn't rehabbing because I was like, oh, I'm still able to do calf raises, I'm still able to do tibialis raises. But since I was able to work through this, saw it as a non-issue. But I realized, I'm like, man, it's been months and I still have a little bit of a strain. So I started working different angles for my ankle to be in, and in a matter of a few days, it's already feeling better. Now, whenever I am in this stage of rehab, I can work these muscles up to 3 times a week because I'm not getting close to failure. It's not causing a lot of fatigue to my nervous system, but I don't need very much for recovery because I'm not going close to failure. As of right now, my main focus is increasing mobility. Another thing that's going to be super significant in healing my back too, which I've I've dieted terribly during this process and I've dieted very clean, is having foods that don't cause inflammation. So not having sugar unless it's from fruit, maybe occasionally juice. For carbohydrates, just having potatoes, sweet potatoes, and occasionally a rice. Besides that, just having a meat or a fish. I've noticed this has really lowered the inflammation in my body because I've been dealing with Epstein Barr to where it gets the symptoms will get revamped very easily if I don't eat in this specific manner. And it may have also caused some autoimmune issues for me because I was just eating whatever and just dealing with the fatigue and other symptoms with a lot of caffeine and getting sick very frequently. Actually, 92% of people are estimated to have Epstein Barr. So it's super common, but people will have symptoms differently. People will have flare ups differently based off of genetics and other factors. So I have to eat in a very specific way so I don't get flare ups. But I noticed whether you're dealing with flare ups of Epstein Barr or some sort of autoimmune thing, changing your diet in a way that limits inflammation is going to help with your recovery across the board with your joints and any other sort of thing. And the thing that can be super frustrating for a lot of people is they're like, I'm hitting my macros, I'm super lean, I'm getting stronger, but I'm dealing with a lot of inflammation, I'm still getting hurt. And you may be very lean, you may be hitting your macros, but you may be having a diet that is causing inflammation. So I can't give a prescription for everybody, but I can tell you what's worked for me and for a lot of other people based off of the case studies and research that I have seen. No dairy, and I know raw dairy is supposed to be great, but from my experience, I would still see inflammation from raw dairy. Cutting out processed sugar, having it from fruit seems to be fine, for myself included. Juice, having that in smaller amounts, and having meat and fish. For Epstein Barr specifically, it says not to have eggs. So for that reason, I just kind of stay away from that. But I think for most people, having eggs should be fine. You guys relate to this journey. We're in it together, and I will update you on my journey as far as limiting flare ups and improving my back.